Yo, what's going on, guys? Jared here. Today I am joined once again with Nick Ma, who this time got first place for the PlayStation 5 tournament at Prodigy Games. Congratulations again. Playing, of course, Naturia Runick. And I'm going to pass it off to him, and he's going to explain everything.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the third episode of the Runick podcast with Jared and I. All we ever do is we want to talk about Runick here. So, I'll skip over some of the boring stuff. We'll kind of just jump into like the differences and whatnot. But I'll quickly go through the list. So 3 Camellia, 3 Mole Cricket, 3 Tree, 3 Blessing, 3 and 1 Sunflower. Those were all the Naturia cards. It's nothing really special.
It's pretty standard at this point for the deck.
Mm-hmm. And then the next cluster of cards are all the Runick cards. So I played 2 Fountain, and then I played 17 Quick Play spells. So the normal 15, which is like Flashing Fire, Tip, Freezing, Destruction, and Slumber. And then I cut down a lot of them. I think I played like 20 at one point, something like really, really a lot. Because all you want to do is really draw Runick cards and play. But like when everyone stops you from playing, it becomes really tough. And then Runick cards just don't break enough. Mm-hmm. So that's why I chose a lot of my going second cards and my defensive cards, you'll see. And then the last 2 Runick spells are Dispelling and Hammer. Hammer was lovely this tournament. I played a lot of like slower decks. Like I played a Naturia, Runick Mirror, and then I played 2 Labyrinth. And Hammer became really good because it became like the kill card in against a lot of those matchups. And the only differences in my deck now from before is I cut down Ash to 2. I think I was playing 2 anyway. But now I played Gamma and I played Tactics. The big reason for any of this, I typically really don't like Gamma. I would think Gamma's better in a deck sort of like Sprite or something that can kind of like attack and kill really quickly. So like the 1 turn negate really, in my opinion, wasn't great in Runick in my head. Mm-hmm. But at locals, I play against a lot of people who play Shifter. And this is the worst feeling ever when you get shifted. So I put a lot of cards as Shifter, and then when they ash your Fountain. Those 2 things don't feel good at all. So I put a lot of cards in to punish Shifter and kind of like Ash, hopefully. More so Ash with Tactics, and then like Shifter and Ash with Gamma. And something I like thought about more once I put the Gamma in my deck was you have a lot of cool ways to kind of like prompt Gamma compared to other decks. So say if you go like second with it and then you draw Gamma and you're like, I don't know when to Gamma, but I have a lot of cool Runick cards. You could save it for your turn and then like play a Runick card like Flashing Fire. They have to negate, and then you Gamma, which is like pretty cool. This thought used to be, I tried Evenly Matched out, I tried Nibiru out, I tried Imperm Ash, and Gamma was probably the MVP of the tournament for me. I had a lot of really like good moments with Gamma. For example, Game 3 against Flunder in top 8, I played Fountain. Say my main phase, nothing. I played Fountain, they're like good. I played Tip, and they were like Shifter, and then I dropped Ash. It was beautiful.
Did you mean Gamma?
Yeah, that's what I meant, Gamma. Sorry. And then in the finals, Game 3, he bricked going first, and then my first move was summon Mole Cricket and go Effect, and then he has Ash and I have Gamma. So that's like game on the spot. Like
yeah, you just instantly get folded from that.
Something that I realized is you really only need the first Fountain to resolve to kind of be ahead. Mm-hmm. So if you're getting a lot of value out of all your Runick spells, they're becoming like instant fusions to become synchros and so on. When you resolve your first Fountain, it recovers everything, and then now you're playing from the position of being ahead. Mm-hmm. So if I really try to force that first Fountain to go through with like Tactics or with like Gamma, it becomes really, really useful.
Right.
Something I wanted to kind of talk about, and I was talking to Jared before we started recording. If y'all watch Demon Slayer, you know how Tanjiro has like the thread breathing or whatever?
Oh, where he sees the opening thread thing?
Yeah, where he sees game and he just goes for it.
He sees game?
So in Runick, you kind of like go for a monster game, and everyone sees the threat for that, right? Like regular, like go for game. But when you start transitioning to the deck out part, you're still good.
I'm sorry when you said once it clicked when you said the opening thread, I just picture the stupid the thread.
Game goes for it. He's like, I gotta cut the head off.
just keep going. No, I'm gonna laugh for like 5 minutes about that. You keep going.
When you transition from playing the combo synchro version, not version, but like goal, at some point you kind of trade off to switch it to the deck out mode. Everyone kind of talks about it in their deck profiles, but I really want to kind of emphasize like that portion right here. some good indicators to kind of when to switch is if you can trade all your resources for theirs equally every turn via Runick cards. So like if they hypothetically have 3 cards or 3 actions of play, and you know that you have a spell, a negate, and then a monster destruction, at minimum with your Runick cards, if you start trading equally every turn, they lose more because they have a milling component to their deck too, where they eventually will lose. So if you can't kill your opponent and overwhelm with big monsters pass, and you have to force them into a longer game where you're trading every turn, if you start playing your Runick cards with higher value and higher interactions, you'll start winning the game like a lot more, but in a longer way. If that makes sense. And I feel like I talked to a lot of like Runick duelists, and I want to like share my thoughts with it, and that's really what I really enjoy with the deck. We can start like trading cards like destruction really well. So some cool things if you played Yu-Gi-Oh back then was like if your opponent sets 5 back row and you draw MSC, Mystical Space Typhoon, you're not going to blind Mystical Space Typhoon and then like hope to get great value. So if you start playing these cards with the idea that, hey, if I play this really like MST, I'm going to get much more value, and all these little interactions I'm doing, it's gonna like amass to something like closer to game than you would just kind of like throwing them willy-nilly.
Right.
So even in the idea of like originally where you play all your Runick spells in like high efficiency to make a synchro, and then you resolve your fountain to draw 3, every other Runick spell activation still has to have like some value, and you can't just start playing cards for nothing and then throwing them away. Like your extra guys, you can't just throw them away. You need like them for specific reasons and all. So again, back to what I was saying, you're gonna start seeing game from a few turns ahead via deck out. Say like you amass like a 5-card hand, and they're like, because you're resolving fountain on your second rotation, your third rotation, and your opponent hasn't really net a play yet. You know that a win condition could potentially be deck out here, and you could go for the safer play each turn instead of trying to make a huge board that would die to like a kaiju or something like that. Because it's harder to get rid of fountain than it is to get rid of a monster. So that's like my big spiel on like why I want to talk about Runick today.
No, it's true though.
Yeah. You'll see game in different ways where like, again, monster game, or again, you see deck out game. Think of the Tanjiro thread John. I don't know what it's called.
The opening thread, that's what it's called.
Yeah. You have to see game. So your deck has game in 2 ways, which is great. So like if your opponent puts like a towers guy up or something, I played against Blackwing, and they put like one of those indestructible guys.
Oh yeah.
You still have a win condition, game 1, and then if you win game 1 with like in 30 minutes, you have like a strong game 2, 3 to like win via life point game or something like that. So we'll talk about the side deck next, I guess.
I was actually gonna say while you were going up about it, like I don't know if you experienced this when you're playing, but I played like last week, and I'm still playing Runick Sprite, but the same scenario can kind of come up sometimes, where you have this trade off of going into deck out, and like one of my opponents, I asked like, oh, like how many cards left in your deck, and like his face like immediately like goes from like, oh, like I'm beating the Sprite engine to, oh shit, now the game has switched into I need to end this now or else I'm just gonna run out of cards and lose in that way instead. Yeah, and it happens a lot more than I think we mentioned, because last time we were saying how this is a fighting deck, but we didn't really emphasize on how it's a fighting deck. And
that is a good point, yeah.
And even if they beat in this deck the big synchros, or in my deck the Sprite engine, they're still fighting with you no matter what as the game prolongs and prolongs and prolongs. And like you said, you are going to win that exchange eventually.
That's a good point. I want to talk about that more too. I think the Sprite engine has a little bit more longevity. Maybe without Elf, I don't know anymore. But I feel like the Runick engine, not the Runick, the Naturia engine just kind of like goes out of your deck very, very quickly.
Yes.
Whether things work out well or not. So if you're able to kind of get to that point where you're like trading a lot of your Naturia engine for kind of like their responses, and now you force a fountain stick. Here's another thing too. I've been watching a lot of like Runick features. I just like that. I'll like type in Naturia Runick and I'll just watch every like YouTubers. I watch a lot of that stuff. Not a lot of people stick fountain. I don't know if that makes sense. Like they'll prioritize like Baron Beast and then like set freezing curses or something. And the line would like not, if you chose to stick fountain, you wouldn't get both Baron Beast. But I would always choose to stick fountain as opposed to like rocking up the monsters, in my opinion.
I think that's too used to normal combo decks, I want to say. Like people are just too used to trying to be like, oh, I can make this crazy end board. But they don't, a lot of players who play this deck don't understand the the importance of the fountain
Yeah,
just
the
sitting there.
blood breathing, John. Yeah, exactly. You don't see game with the Runick cards.
You just sit there and it just goes and go. Like I said, a lot of the times you're just playing, and then you look at you'll just be going and going and going, and then you look at your opponent and they have 2 cards left, and you have like 5, and you're like, I was just playing the game. Like I didn't even
Yeah.
really, I didn't feel like I did a lot. It just kind of happened that way. And those situations happen after you resolve fountain usually twice. That's like the second
Mhm.
fountain resolution gets to like you're so far ahead and you have so much card economy over them that they just never even had a chance to play in the first place.
And I want to bring up against other, like, say you play against like a stall deck or some sorts, something that gets you practice with the Runic engine a little bit more. Once we get used to kind of rotating, like on your turn, you see that you can play tip to mill 1, slumber to mill 3, hammer to mill like 2. You start seeing, I get 6 cards, and that rotates it next turn every single turn. And then how many cards I have to play until they deck out. It's like how many turns I have left to win via attacking. This is the same thing, but you're attacking like their deck, right?
Yeah.
So for example, like you don't have to ask such a blatant question like how many cards are left in your deck. You can kind of ask them in the beginning if you remember, and then kind of see as the game kind of plays out. You're not physically counting.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people really just don't notice like they're getting decked out too, which is kind of the cool part. But having that rotation of, again, hammer every turn on your turn, your opponent's turn if possible. Once all your non-engine, non-runic cards are out of your deck, that is a very big possibility because you're drawing multiple cards on your turn and your opponent's turn, where you can kind of rotate that same hammer tip thing continuously, and then slumber too.
I mean, it's arguable that just cutting out like the ashes, if you just cut like the going second cards, like your deck's almost never breaking, right? Like it just won't happen. Like your deck will always just be crazy every time. But I wanted to talk about the Ash, Gamma, and the Talons as opposed to last time. There was Nibiru, there was Imperm, and I feel like these I'll say like these 8 to 10 slots of these cards usually are going to change depending on the format.
Yeah.
Obviously depending on how it goes, and it worked out for you because everyone at your, I always say play to what you think is the room's going to be playing. Like not just like you can't always treat a local like a YCS, like what the people at your local are going to be playing. If no one's playing Kashtira, don't be siding for Kashtira, that in that essence. So
Yes.
like obviously Gamma worked out because you knew people were going to play D-Shifter, so we put in Gamma to counter that, and it worked out in your favor. How did you like Talents? I actually really wanted to ask that.
Talents was good when you have to resolve Fountain, because either it gave you like a fake Fountain, like a draw 2. Most of my talents in this tournament were draw 2s. I was never ahead enough to where I can just look at someone's hand. Talents does do cool things. For example, like if they have a Rise Heart and Fenrir off of like a Shangri-Ira, you can Talents to take the one and banish the other.
Yeah.
Fenrir to banish the other guy. I liked Talents. It didn't help my shifter problem, so I still might change that card around to kind of see what might be better. I'm glad I played it, and I'm glad it resolved where it did because it did win me those games.
Okay. And obviously you said Gamma was just insane.
Yeah, so I wish that slot. There was a moment where I had so I played Called by the Grave in my side deck as well. So it was 2 talents, Called by the Grave, triple Gamma. So I kind of count those as like the same slot almost. I went first against a Kashtira, game 2, and I drew Talents, and he shifted in standby phase, which is like that's normal. People shift in the standby phase. That's not unnormal to kind of play around Talents. And I lost that game because Talents was in my hand. Like it was a rough one.
Yeah.
That was a time when like that sucked. But then other resolves kind of like counterbalance it to make it really good.
I know I've been talking about this for a little bit now, between like friends mostly. I don't know if I've mentioned it in videos, but the depopularity of Ash Blossom over time, I feel like has been very under the radar of a lot of people. I've mentioned it when I'm deck building recently. I'm just like, yeah, but Ash is so good against Branded, but it's like, who's really playing Branded still at this point in this format? So Ash is slowly falling on their favor. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on if you think Ash is still worth it. Maybe next set when the new cards come out, it'll probably be good again because it'll be more open in the format, and then Ash usually thrives in something like that. But yeah, whatever your
I typically like cards that have a large activation window. Cards that you can almost activate whenever you draw them, like they're pretty okay. And I don't need cards to be great, because what I believe is if your collective hand is all playable and okay, you can kind of play it in a sequence where it kind of outplays an opponent who might play it in a little bit more suboptimally, So I've always hated cards like Starlight Road, where you have to kind of play directly into it. compared to something like a little more open. I don't know, like I guess Ash is not a great because it's just a good card. But cards like Torrential, things like that, like where it's like very open, the better you activate it, the better you resolve it, the better it's going to be if you play it well.
Yeah.
Ash was always in all the builds. Even the last one, I played 2 Ash, 2 Nibiru, 2 Imperm, I remember now. But things about Ash is it's not super high impact against like non-branded. Like against Kashtira, I sided out like a lot too. It's just not, it doesn't do enough. And then you're trading a card out of your hand sometimes to get your extra deck rips too, or like to stop like a Theosis that doesn't matter, or like something like that.
Usually they can keep playing through it. It doesn't do enough.
The tournament I go to, it's held in my local store, Prodigy Games. Shout out to Prodigy Games in Lindenwold, New Jersey. A lot of branded players, and then I knew there was going to be a lot of Runick players too. And Runick's pretty tough, so I wanted something just against, if I can hit Fountain, I'll hit Fountain. So Ash at 2 was fine enough. I would keep playing it at 2. I didn't have any issues with it.
Yeah.
The other cards were a lot more impactful when they resolved, and Ash felt like a lot more. I can resolve it whenever I wanted to, as opposed to having to wait for those big moments.
It takes more finesse to use Ash at the right time, I suppose, would be the term I would use.
Yeah, like with all the cards, Ash, like Freezing Curses, all that stuff.
Oh, the Runick cards, yeah, absolutely. They're all that's all. The whole engine's finesse, in my opinion. And I find it funny that people wanted this deck hit on a ban list, and it doesn't, like, I don't know, like it doesn't feel like a ban list type deck. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like a problem.
It feels like Runick sucks when everyone plays it too. Like you really only would want to be the only Runick duelist too.
Yeah, I agree.
And like I guess I like the Master Duel hit. If I had to hit the deck, I like the Master Duel hit, where they put all the strong spells to 2.
Oh, is that what they did?
They put Tip, Freezing Curses, I think Slumber, and Destruction 2.
Oh my god, what the fuck?
So you got really used to playing things like triple Dispelling and then like double Golden Droplet, so you can get some like all activations on turn 1.
Yeah. Okay, I get that. I don't keep up with Master Duel, so
like I would hate for like Hugin or Fountain to go to 1. That would make the deck almost unplayable sometimes.
People say like Tip to 1. That's like the go-to. I feel like
that's almost fine. Like Tip is kind of the cheating card because it gives you an extra like spell engrave.
Yes.
So it does make it unfair, but Fountain will make it unplayable. You know, Fountain goes to 1, like you lose the Cosmic forever.
Yeah, like 1 Cosmic comes out, the game's just over immediately.
Yeah. So Tip to 1, like I hate saying that because I love the deck, but Tip to 1 probably is fair. With the new guy coming out too, the new guy's really nice.
Oh, he's in 2 sets away. Yeah, the level 9 guy. He's not next set, 2 sets away, but he's really good. I really like that card. This is actually my first time looking at your Sign in Extra. I actually didn't look at it before.
Any more questions on the main deck? Anything there?
No, I think I got everything pretty like I would think to ask. Nothing really. I asked about the Ash Gammas and the Talons, so and then I think the Runick map lineup was fine. 17's like always a good number.
I'll talk about the side deck first because I think the extra deck has a little bit more to talk about. So I saw 3 Kurikara, 3 Cast Hunter, 2 D Barrier, 2 Ancient Organism, 2 Nibiru, 2 Dark Ruler, and then a Call by the Grave. Every card was pretty solid because it covered a lot of matchups. I sided Chaos Hunter in against Kashtira going second. I never drew it, so I never can kind of like say it was great or not.
Yeah.
Kurikara was really, really strong against Kashtira going second. And the MVP in the side deck, to be honest, was Grave with Super Ancient Organism.
Dude, same.
I should have just played 3. Like it's almost like main deckable.
Yeah, I agree.
It covers everything. Like I'm sure everyone knows that. So a cool play I did was all right, real quick, I'll get going through this game. This is game 2 of the finals. I'm down game 1. I make Naturia Beast, and I have Mole Cricket on board with Grave of the Ancient Superorganism face down and Fountain up. I pass. My opponent plays Pot of Prosperity, so I'm like, oh, god damn it, he has Gamma. So I go Beast Effect. He chains Gamma, and then I chain Mole Cricket on board to bring out Camellia. So the chain link resolves where Camellia comes out, Gamma destroys Beast, Beast Miltude gets fizzled, and then Pot of Prosperity resolves to grab Bell because he realized that Camellia can bring back Beast. So he grabs Bell, and then resolution of the chain link, I go Camellia chain link 1 to Reborn, and then Camellia chain link 2 to Foolish Burial. So he couldn't Bell. The Beast came back, And then he synchroed to make Omega, went to battle phase, and then I flipped Brave the Ancient Organism, so I have Grave and Beast. And he doesn't have outs anymore because he loses his Gamma.
Yeah.
So, like, you just win on deck out. You, like, natural deck out at that point, too, almost.
What was that? Was that Kashtira?
That was Kashtira, yeah.
I cited for. I mean, I feel like this is pretty well known now, but even branded's like the obvious answer. But putting it in, going second against branded is also relevant. Where you get, they gimmick puppet you. You can't play, but you set Grave with a Super Agent Organism, and then you just flip it on their turn, and they can't play, and then it's just a lockout, and nothing happens, and then you are able to just play your deck again. I've done that a couple times versus branded. It's very, very strong.
It's good in Sword Soul too. Like, it's
oh my god, yeah. It just feels okay against most things. Like, that doesn't feel bad a lot of the time.
I also sided against Dragon Link, and it stopped this Chaos Legionnaire. That was amazing.
I mean, that works, I suppose.
So I'll talk about the extra deck quickly. So I made everything. This is one of those first times, in my opinion, where I think the extra deck. This is like the best 15 at the moment, as opposed to there's only like 15 good ones. Mm-hmm. So there's a bunch of cards I wanted to play that I didn't make the cut, and I really wanted them to. One was Baguska. He came up, but then the card that I cut Baguska for came up too. So I'll go over everything quickly. Donner, Dugares, the 10s, which is Baron and Chengying. The 9, which is Croc, still my favorite card. I played the 8 again, which is Scarlight. And then the 6s are Coral Dragon and Stardust Charge Warrior, and then Barkion Beast, and then the Runick cards, which is 2 Jerry, 2 Hugin, and then 1 Munin. I cut Baguska for Scarlight because I had the issue of still needing to clear my opponent's cards, but then I still needed like a time card of some sorts.
Yeah.
I played against Labyrinth, and I made Scarlight, and it sat on the field for 2 turns, and it was phenomenal. But then there was another game where I got shifted, and if I had Baguska in my deck, I could have played for a little bit too.
Yeah.
So there was a trade-off in like one for the other. I still want to play. I don't know what to cut. I will not cut Croc. I think Croc is one of my favorite cards in the deck. And now, in addition with Gamma, if you have like an extra Mole Cricket, you can do like Gamma Driver Mole Cricket to make Croc to draw 2.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Croc draws you. When you make Croc, you commit to trying to stick Fountain. So you can leave like you can make a Naturia Beast with it. You can make a Barkion with it. You can sometimes leave like Camellia Sunflower. But in certain matchups where you realize like I can't play, I need to get to Fountain. Digging deeper, like getting to a Croc gets you a draw 2. Sometimes a draw 3 if you make it through Coral Dragon. I still love Croc. I'll still play Croc. And then Munin was really good because if you need a extra Runick Resolve at the end, you can summon Munin instead of Hugin, and then they can't Cosmic your like Fountain or something like that because you can banish Munin instead. The gaining life thing won me a few games too, which is great, and it's on both players' turns, which is awesome too.
I was gonna say you are playing like a higher Runick like, fusion package in the extra. Usually, it's pretty rare that I see it that high.
The cards that I didn't play that typically people play are Baguska and Exciton. They just don't come up enough for me. I think I really like the synchro route, or however I'm playing to kind of like cater towards it.
Yeah.
But you really do make everything. You don't skip. There's not a guy in your extra that you kind of like skip over ever.
I agree. I think this it's one of those decks where every card needs to do something in all aspects, like extra deck, main deck, like everything needs to feel like it's doing something in every game, or else you just feel behind, or you're just gonna sit there and think, oh, I wish I had this thing. And not this stupid other card that just happens to be in here.
And the way the deck's like kind of just in nature of it, it's very open, which is like something I really, really enjoy too.
Yeah.
You're not forced to make the same play every time. You don't win the same way every time. You wouldn't be a deck out, but like it's different ways to get there and stuff.
So I obviously there's like Naturia Runick is pretty. I don't want to say standardized, like besides those like 10 cards, but it's pretty close of like just how the natural deck building is with it. Where it's you don't have a lot of flex spots with it. Obviously, you made the most of with the 10 slots that you have, and but moving forward, going past the next sex, that's what everyone's talking about, and everyone wants to start getting ready for. Where do you feel this deck kind of lies in the super heavy samurais coming, the new branded cards? I'm definitely forgetting a deck here. What is the other one?
Early.
Pearly. Yeah, the Pearly deck.
I have two things I want to say quickly. One of the big motivations for the tournament. First of all, everyone should go to Prodigy Games for the PS5 tournament. Highly recommend if you're in the New Jersey area.
Once a month.
Once a month. They're monthlies, and
Yeah.
they fill every time. They're like pretty competitive too. It's a tough tournament.
It's very good. If you're around the tri-state, I would highly recommend it.
One of our friends, Chris Lynn, he's been on this channel a lot. He made a line that I really liked. He says that because these are so consistently running, if you buy a PS5 at this point, you are a coward. And that motivated me. I am not a coward. I got to prove him this. So I'll talk about Runick and kind of like moving forward and all the other stuff. Something I really thought about was when people were telling me to try a new deck was they're like, play Pearly. And they would say, it's kind of like Runick, but better. So it made me like think of like what like the Runick kind of issues were, where you don't get a battle phase, but in addition to that, you don't get a main phase too. And at first, I knew that, like, no, everybody knows that, but I thought conceptually, like, what does a main phase do for you when you want it to? So say you're playing like a regular deck like Sprite, and you're going second against someone. Your main phase 1 sets up to like break or something. The battle phase attributes to that, and then main phase 2 is like the post battle phase, what I can do afterward to kind of like fix or establish and so forth. Where you get 3 phases to do all that. And the Runick deck really only has like a super main phase 1.
Yeah.
Like your main phase 1's like everything, and you need to do it then. You get your opponent's turn too sometimes, but you have to really kind of work for all that stuff. And realizing that made me kind of like see some of the issues with the deck. And the Pearly cards, they also are all quick plays, and the cool thing about them is none of them are once per turn. So the difference in here against, like, they're not Runick cards either. Like, they're not like destroying cards on the field. They're not like inherent back row engine stuff. But it's very comparable where this deck is open and your opponent can kind of play into it in different ways, and you kind of see going for game differently. The Pearly deck can kind of, I think, feel like that. I'm still testing it now, but I'm really resonating with that deck right now.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan with that. I guess that's not your question. Your question is, how does this deck fare with the rest of the format? Noir is really tough. I don't know how to beat a Noir with like the cards you have in front of me right now. You would definitely have to build towards it. And then I think all the other decks just become a little quicker. So this deck, it's tough when you use your old deck going into the new format, especially when someone's testing new cards, because everyone knows what your cards do and everyone's still learning what the new cards do.
Right.
And at the power level of just learning, the new cards are almost as strong as like Solved, like Naturia Runick or something like that, if that makes sense. I like the Naturia engine a lot. I like it a lot more than before I tried it. It just didn't seem like a strong engine when you kind of just look at it on paper.
Yeah.
Like 7 monsters and like a few spells. But they interact so well. And then I think Naturia Beast is going to be very, very strong too. And but people play more outside, like Ghost Ogre and stuff like that.
Especially with Pearly being popular, Kaiju's might see more play and things of that nature. Santa Claus, I know that's like a very sought after one now. But yeah, I don't know. I've been wanting to play this deck more, and I've also heard that the Pearly Runick comparison a lot, and like I'm not gonna lie, I've tested Pearly. I'm probably gonna be like the minority here. I really don't like it. Just because I like when my natural engine just draws more cards, and Pearly doesn't do that. I don't like that it draws on their turn. Like, cards that draw on my opponent's turn are so much worse than drawing on my own turn. Like, I'm sure that, like, even post-siding, for instance, where you play cards like D-Barrier and Grave, like, doing, like, just, like, a normal Naturia Runick combo, and then sometimes you draw into D-Barrier and Grave, and you're like, okay, thank God I'm playing these Runick cards, because I wouldn't have been able to find these cards if I was just playing, like, a normal deck. And that's where stuff like even the Sprite deck can kind of be annoying, because I don't have stuff like Coral Dragon to get that extra, like, it's just like, oh, come on, one more, or the Crocosaur, just one more draw, like, we could find something. Like, I value that a lot personally, and they also don't slow the game state like Runick does, if that makes sense. Like, yes. Pearly inherently does not stop your opponent in different points to prolong the game for Naturia to really flourish in the game. And I've tested Naturia Pearly before, and it's cool when it goes, but like once you get past that, like that turn 1, you're just like, damn, this just sucks now. Like, it doesn't actually do anything. Like, if they break that initial board, I wanted to do more, and it just doesn't. Maybe it needs more testing. Maybe there could be something more like to help prolong that game state. But for me personally, I did not resonate it with it well.
I'm the worst when it comes to transitioning to new formats. I don't know anything. Like, I just like the old cards. I wish they can. I don't even like Yu-Gi-Oh. I just like Runick. I just play Runick forever. Yeah. I mean, make their own card game. Just Runick.
It's like that. It's like that box of cereal meme where it's like, "Oops, all Runick." But I've been resonating more with Super Heavy Samurai personally as a deck. Surprisingly, yeah. I don't know if I've been playing too much Control recently or like mid range, and my body's just like, oh yeah, like you just want to pop off on people and just do like a full combo. But there
was a stint when I was playing Sprite, and I loved Mosquito because how aggressive you could be. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like it's that alternate win count where you can just be like, ooh, I can win in a different way right now. But the Super Heavy deck, like it feels rewarding when you can manage those resources properly, and if you build the deck in a way where you don't. Like, draw is always going to hurt, but if you can build it in a way where you can mitigate that loss, and it's not literally just a turn skip, like playing more copies of Regulus or Fenrir and things like that. It's like, okay, you draw me, I'm still going to end on Regulus Fenrir, and then you can try to play if you want. Sometimes you can still make a Babushka and things of that nature, depending on how your deck is built. But so far, I've actually, surprisingly for a deck that I cannot play any spells and traps in, I've been enjoying it more than I thought I was going to.
Is there a world where there's like a Runick Synchro Sprite deck or something like that?
A Runick? I mean, with the Apple Dragon coming out, maybe.
Yeah.
That card's, like, absurd in every way. Maybe. I gotta think about that now. Runick Synchro. I mean, like, the closest thing to, like, Runick Synchro with Sprite that I can think of like, a bunch of level 2 monsters would be, like, something like Goaty, I think, right? They have, like, a lot of level 2 tuners, but they're just slow. It's a very slow deck.
Like a Runick with this new Synchro cards. It doesn't have to have the Strike cards in it.
The, like, the Chaos Angel?
Yeah, something like that.
I was thinking about, like, the Bestial, right? Like, the Chaos Angel and the Bestial, because they're both really, really cool cards. So if you play, like, a level... I was looking at level 6. Like, just something to note is that if you have Bestials come back into the format and you play them with the Runick cards, you can use Hugin and a Bestial to go into Chaos Angel that can't be, that has the full effect on it. I think it is. I think it's that, if I remember right. Is Chaos Angel 8 or 10? I forget. There was some line with it. I have to double check. But I know there was a line with it that I was thinking of. I have to double check.
I guess a lot of the guys they're all light and darks, right?
Yeah, all the action deck guys are light and dark. So Chaos Angel has like really cool synergy with the Runick card. That's pretty much what I'm getting at. Is that like I'm not limiting myself to Bestials, but like there's a lot of different engines that you can play to go into Chaos Angel.
You might be onto some shit right now. This is crazy.
Dude, this is just what I think about at work. Oh, he's 10, I'm sorry. So yeah, it was so I know you need like a 6 light for Jerry, a 7 dark for Munin, and then an 8 dark for Hugin. And then a 5, I want to say a 5 white for the other dog, because there's another one.
Yeah, Freaky.
Yeah, Freaky. But yeah, overall, like I think my long point is of me not being able to formulate an actual cohesive thought is that Runick is very adaptable, and as new cards come out, usually they can find a way to squeeze their way in and do cool new innovative stuff with said new cards. So I think that I think there can always be a place for it. It's just it always takes a little bit to figure out. Like Naturia Runick kind of slipped in over like a couple months, I want to say. Like, it took like 4 months for the deck to find its place. Like, this deck wasn't relevant right after Darkwind Blast came out with the Naturia cards. It took like a couple months after for this deck to be good. And that's just people figuring it out.
Yeah.
It'll probably be the same thing with this next set, because it's a big, big meta swing and then a possible ban list on top of that. So, many changes. I don't know about specifically tuners.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next Runick podcast episode. Talk about it.
Yeah, the next one's gonna be post next set, where we have to be sitting here cooking some. Dude, I'm not gonna lie, my Dueling Book account has some wacky Runick builds. Like, I've tried some weird shit on there.
Tried Runick Sword Soul yet?
Yes, I have. Dude, that's not even the weirdest one. This one's kind of cool. It was kind of saucy for the last event. I had a Sprite Runick list, but it played like 3 Allure and main deck 3 Radiant Kaijus, and it was just a bunch of draw cards with the Sprite engine to get into like these high impact going second cards. and you drew into more Runick cards as well. So like your Runicks can draw into Allures or into like Sprite Blues or Jets or like those extra bodies you can just banish with it. And
Yeah, I was gonna tell the viewers that they could like see how we progressed and grew with Runick over time, minus the Bamboo Sword video. And then we just spewed that nonsense. And
Bamboo Sword is still really cool, alright? It was a fun idea. It was dope. Potted Greed's a cool card, alright? Fuck you. But is there anything else that you would like to add to your deck, or anything else you'd like to say, shoutouts or anything of that nature?
First of all, shoutouts to Prodigy Games in Lindenwold, New Jersey. I really recommend everyone coming to those PS5 tournaments. They're fun. The prizings are more than a typical like console tournament. So for first place, I got the PS5 and 20 OTS 21 and 20 OTS like 40 OTS packs, which is like crazy. And then like the prizing, even for top 4 or top 8, when you lose, you get 24 packs, but it's like you get 4 different packs, like the last 4 ones or something like that. So you have a cool mix of everything. If you buy PS5 now, you're a coward. I'm just saying. Come to PS5 tournament.
Just auto coward. But all right, is that everything?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile and the discussion. I like doing long discussions like these. I'm becoming more and more accustomed to them as I like get deck profiles and stuff from my friends, especially who do well in events. I actually like talking about their deck and the theories and stuff. It's more fun. But yeah, thank you again. Congratulations on the PS5 once again. I feel like I always do that. But yeah, congratulations for winning. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Bye, guys.
See you guys.